Okay, let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're unpacking the thrilling origins of a dynasty that ruled for 600 years. This is the story of the Imperial Pallavas, and specifically, we're looking at how they emerged from absolute literal obscurity to build an empire of iron, stone, and incredible cultural wealth. To really appreciate this story, you have to realize that we're starting in the shadows. For nearly 3 centuries, a literal dark shroud fell over South India. I mean, imagine a complete historical void. The 3 great ancient dynasties that had ruled the lands of ancient Tamilakam for ages, we're talking the Cheras, the Cholas, and the Pandyas, were just completely swept away. Existing kingdoms were torn down, and traditional socio-religious orders were uprooted practically overnight. It was a time of pure chaos and historical obscurity. Ancient Tamil texts call this dark era the Age of the Kalabhras. But who actually were the Kalabhras? Well, that's a mystery that historians are still trying to unravel, even today. They were this incredibly disruptive, mysterious force that plunged the entire region into darkness. But as you'll see, out of this 3-century crisis, an opening was finally created. Let's move into Section 1, Shadows of the Satavahanas, the origins of the early Pallavas. So, before we meet the man who shattered this dark age, we really need to understand the roots of his people. Notice the 2 competing historical theories up here on the slide. On one side, some argue that they were indigenous Tamil chieftains. On the other, many believe they were actually northern feudatories of the powerful Satavahana Empire. But when you really dig into the historical record, the evidence points to a brilliant political adaptation rather than a simple origin story. See, the early Pallavas served as administrative officers and governors under the Satavahanas. And while doing so, they absorbed the absolute best parts of that empire. It's like they were students of empire building. They absorbed advanced northern statecraft. They adopted the Prakrit and Sanskrit scripts, which we can clearly see preserved on their early copperplate inscriptions. And absolutely crucial to our story, they mastered highly advanced military organization. When the Satavahana Empire ultimately collapsed, the early Pallavas didn't just disappear. Instead, they strategically relocated. They packed up and moved south into Tandaimandalam, which is basically the border region between modern-day northern Tamil Nadu and Andhra Pradesh. Now, at this point, they weren't an empire. Actually, scratch that, they were more like a surviving martial lineage, just waiting in the wings for their big moment. And that moment arrived when the Kalabhra disruption completely fractured South Indian stability. Section 2, Rise of the Lion King, the mid-6th century campaign. By the mid-6th century, the Kalabhra rule finally began to fracture. Enter Simhavishnu, the Lion Vishnu. He ruled from roughly 575 to 600 CE. Reclaiming South India required a lot more than just some localized skirmishes. It required a strategist who understood both brutal warfare and political legitimacy. Simhavishnu launched a massive, full-scale war of conquest directly into the heart of Tandaimandalam. He literally did what no king before him could. Let's move to the historical record of the famous Kashakudi copper plates and see how this builds. Because this wasn't just a single battle, it was a rolling avalanche of a campaign. First, he completely shattered the Kalabhra stranglehold. Second, his armies surged southward, conquering the Chola lands all the way down to the Kaveri River. And third, he successfully repelled aggressive invasions from Malaya, Ceylon, and Pandya forces. The guy was just unstoppable. Because of this overwhelming and frankly brutal military success, he earned a very specific royal title. He was crowned Avanisimha. That translates to the Lion of the Earth. And honestly, looking at his conquests, it's an incredibly fitting name. So the takeaway here is that by breaking the Kalabhras and securing those borders, Simhavishnu pulled off 2 monumental feats that would change history for good. Monumental feat number 1, he permanently restored order to South India. And why this matters cannot be overstated. He single-handedly ended a 300-year crisis of chaos, darkness, and historical obscurity. He planted the flag of the Imperial Pallavas firmly in the ground. Section 3, Kanchipuram, the strategic prize, and monumental feat 2, a grand fortress capital. To maintain all that newfound order, he needed a stronghold that projected absolute power and immense wealth. So why Kanchipuram? Well, Kanchi wasn't just a sacred ancient city, it was the ultimate strategic prize. Think about it. It sat perfectly at the intersection of major inland trade routes. It had direct sea access to the Bay of Bengal through ports like Mahabalipuram, And under Simhavishnu, it was transformed into this bustling metropolis where Sanskrit scholarship thrived, right alongside ancient Tamil literary traditions. This brilliant urban planning laid the exact groundwork for South India's golden age of architecture and trade. Moving into Section 4, Legacy of Iron and Stone, from Warlords to God Kings. As we hit the final chapter of Simhavishnu's life, we see how he cemented his dynasty's right to rule. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is that it shows Simhavishnu wasn't just a warlord, he was a profound patron of art. At the Adivaraha cave temple in Mahabalipuram, there is a stunning bas-relief portrait of Simhavishnu seated regally, flanked by his two queens. This is actually one of the earliest portrait sculptures ever carved into stone in all of South Indian history. And this brilliantly illustrates a massive shift in political legitimacy. By immortalizing his bloodline in permanent stone, a very clear message was sent. The Pallavas were no longer feudatories. They were sovereign god kings. It was the ultimate statement of divine right and permanent authority. Simhavishnu literally crushed the Dark Age. He left behind an empire forged in the iron of his swords and the stone of his monuments, safely handing his son and heir Mahendravarman I a unified and immensely powerful kingdom. But here is where history takes a wonderfully surprising turn. Look at the weapons of the son. Mahendravarman didn't just wage wars with swords. He waged them with chisels to carve entire temples out of solid granite mountains. He waged them with ink, writing hilarious, and I mean hilarious, satirical plays. He became this polymath king who completely birthed the magnificent tradition of South Indian rock-cut architecture. Which leaves us with a truly fascinating question to close out this explainer. Can an empire forged in brutal warfare survive and even thrive in the hands of a satirical, temple-carving polymath? It's just a remarkable transition from the warrior who founded the empire to the artist who elevated it. Thank you so much for diving into the source material with me today, and keep questioning how history is built.